Paris, Nice, Monaco, Switzerland. And what's funny is that my businesses actually grew the most during the time that I was traveling across the world. So my business partner, after I got back, decided to head to Spain with your guys' services and everything. And then we had another record-breaking month. So I was like, dude, I got to go join you because obviously this Europe travel thing is just working.
All right, so we're here with Robert Miller, who is a serial entrepreneur, just a total professional when it comes to investments, e-commerce businesses, marketing agency, all sorts of stuff with online entrepreneurship. Can you just tell everyone a little bit more about who you are and what specifically your businesses do?
So a little bit about my background is I actually used to do marketing for myself a long time ago, and then I actually used to work for Grant Cardone. So once I left his agency, I was an agency alcoholic. I had, plenty of agencies, plenty of clients come to me for paid advertising, marketing, just digital services, and really how to grow and scale businesses. And so flash forward a couple of years of doing that, transitioned fully into being able to do that for myself. So I have some e-commerce wholesale businesses where essentially we aggregate product buying power and we purchase those products and sell it on platforms like Amazon and Walmart and really just other distribution channels that we find in the market right now. And then I've been a big cryptocurrency fan. So it actually started in about 2015, 2016 is when I got involved. And so just learning the business around fund management, and essentially how to do this for others. I went ahead and started a hedge fund earlier this year that we're currently raising capital for. So a huge marketing background, but finance has my heart.
Tell me a little bit more about just like how you think about using your time as an entrepreneur and how working with us saved you some time or helped you with time management and in relation to travel.
We have over 100 team members between, the portfolio of companies. And so once you get over 100, the way that you shift your thinking is just, it's very different because quite frankly, you can't get visibility into every single little workflow of every single team member. There's teams built for a reason to manage that. And so the highest value of your time becomes the highest leverage impact items to tackle if you're making changes or if you're making improvements, which all businesses do. And so the last thing that you usually want to think about is trying to find the best deal for your flight, especially if it's domestic and you're flying in different states and you're doing some meetings and stuff like that. The ones where it really matters the most in regards to time allocation is those vacations, the cool experiences, the dream vacations that everyone wants. But those take a lot more planning than just, buying a flight from here to New York if I'm trying to go talk to some investors. So the mindset becomes different and the resources around that have to be different as well if you want a great experience. And just knowing me, I'm not the best with travel coordination. I'm not the best with event planning. It's not my strong suit. Finance is more my strong suit. So from an ROI perspective, that's where I saw the value. And obviously, working with you guys, helping me find these flights and just optimizing my schedule so that way my assistant can go ahead and book it in. It's been a great experience so far in doing so and a good decision of my time.
You mentioned your assistant. We do often work with people's assistants to help them book their travel, and they kind of act as a go-between. So tell me a little bit more about how you've gotten your assistant involved in this process and in working with our team and how that's gone.
Yeah, for sure. So I've actually gone through a few different assistants, mostly because of tempo. Like I mentioned with, the return of my time, there's a certain speed with it. And so for entrepreneurs, typically in the beginning, you can work with a virtual assistant. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I employ a lot of them. But at a certain point, there does come a tempo push that sometimes you just need more support domestically. So now I have a domestic or a US based executive assistant. Now, for either one of them, I've actually had a full document that showcases everything in my travel. So my preferences, all of my codes for all 19 different airlines that you guys have me sign up with, all of the TSA codes, all that kind of stuff centralized. So that way, when it comes to working on a higher tempo, it's not like they're having to communicate a lot with me to get certain things done. It's all in the document. It's all in the representation of the points and how that whole game works or how to transfer points from one airline to the next or from a credit institution to the next in order to do so. And so I always say with the executive assistant, obviously it's a reflection of you as the executive. It's an assistant to that, so you have to give those resources to be able to do that. And if they don't have a good foundation from your side, then sure, they can find the travel stuff or work alongside you to find the travel stuff. But there really isn't that integration of, finding the best ROI because it ties
Mhm.
into finances. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the big difference I think a lot of people don't think about. It's the EA should just have all this knowledge, number one, where quite frankly, there's a science to it, which you guys have crafted. And then two, the EA should already know all my stuff and all my preferences. Well, if it's not documented, she's
Right.
not going to know, or he's not going to know. So it's a lose lose if you don't have both sides of the spectrum covered.
Your travel and your trips. You just took some pretty epic trips this summer. So why don't you just share a little bit around like what was the trip like? Like where did you go? What did you cover? What were some of the highlights? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. And before I share some of the awesome trips, I mean, the backdrop of, the ROI of time, ROI of just like the time that I spent with you guys and being able to do this stuff, it's actually a lot lower of an entry than people think to have these dream vacations. So long that you're growing your business. I mean, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars now on paid advertising. So I was just sitting on all these points, and I thought that relative for a one-to-one transfer, I was going to have to drop 20 grand just on, one cool experience or something like that. I didn't have any awareness towards it. Whereas then when we, started working with you and, going on some trips just simply to New York, even we're more efficient from here from Miami. But this past summer, my buddy was getting married. So he hosted a dream wedding, not his dream wedding, his wife's dream wedding, out in Paris and flew out there first class through Air France with you guys, and then just had an amazing experience all through Europe. So I hit Paris, Nice, Monaco, Switzerland. Then I flew out to Dubai. And one of the coolest parts of flying from Swiss to Dubai with you guys is we got that first class for, I think it was United Emirates, and had the private lounges, had all that kind of stuff. And but they were like cleaning my shoes in the airport. They were doing just a bunch of cool concierge stuff that I hadn't experienced before. And then the Dubai airport was great, and had a great time there. But each location, man, was great. And it was funny is that my businesses actually grew the most during the time that I was traveling across the world. So my business partner, after I got back, decided to head to Spain with your guys' services and everything. And then we had another record breaking month. So I was like, dude, I got to go join you because obviously this Europe travel thing is just working. We just got to go do it. So I met him in Spain as well and had an amazing time in Marbella and, had just tremendous experiences from the food to the environment, and also just the beaches in Marbella were super sick. You got the Mediterranean on the left, you got the Atlantic on the right, and you're able to just dip your toes in both. And man, it was just an experience that I won't forget. So between all of those different places, though, I will say my favorite was probably Switzerland. Because of the mountains, the greenery, the lake was beautiful. I was staying at a resort in Montreux, and it was right on the water. So like as soon as you wake up, you go down and get some espressos or your cafe and your breakfast. You just have the most amazing view of the mountains. The water is like teal. It's like glacial water. It's not like the ocean over in California or anything. It is insane. I've never seen that color before with actual natural water. So overall, just all a bunch of cool stuff that I've never seen before and
Yeah.
got to experience a lot of culture.
I'm curious to think how your journey of that shift in your psychology around like taking vacations and taking time away from the business. You have multiple businesses. They're both pretty big. You're a young guy, so like that's a lot to manage for
Yeah.
the average entrepreneur. How has your psychology shifted over the years around taking vacations?
So yeah, let me take you back to 2019, 2020. I think I was 19 or whatever, 21 at the time. And I remember I was dating a girl at the time, and I was so engulfed in work, so engulfed in that stuff. And I'm in college, so it's like it's really just one to one. There's no team, there's no leverage or anything. And I thought that I was completely maxed out, capped out. I went to this mastermind in Puerto Rico, so away from my hometown, and I met a gentleman by the name of Craig Ballantyne, and his whole thing was how to craft your perfect week. And so I remember reading those books, and I was just like, "Oh, dude, I'm doing this completely wrong. Like, totally wrong. My mindset around building a team was wrong. My mindset around vacations was wrong. Everything was just broken." And I remember actually calling and apologizing, like, "Hey, look, babe, I'm so sorry. Like, I've been doing this completely wrong, just total paradigm shift." But that came from me traveling and then having some good feedback with it. And I know we've taken some trips when we went to Banff earlier this year. That was actually my also my biggest month at that time for this year, and just had record breaking months every time that I traveled. And so kind of the point that I'm trying to make from all of that is you get so deep into building systems. And I always say that entrepreneurs rise or fall to the level of systems that they have because everything is a feedback loop. If you can't have a report, if you can't have a number shoot back up to you of something that's super important, then you probably don't have the feedback needed in order to correct that number. And so every single one of those times that I traveled to Banff or to Europe or to Dubai, to Spain, and we had these record breaking months, it was because the systems were built to be able to have the reports where I knew that I had all visibility on the businesses that I needed to actually call things out or just to understand that, hey, everything's going fine. And that was when it really shifted for me. I was always a systems guy and an operations guy to make sure that the business was actually, pushing forward, but really just allowing the team to adopt a lot more of those systems to give them the feedback that they need. There's a KPI that I'm looking for that's made up of 10 other KPIs that are from the team. So if I just tell them, hey, I'm looking for this one KPI, and they go build their own suite of KPIs within that, or a report to that, then it makes your life so much easier. And so just having that as an expectation sometimes holds entrepreneurs back. They don't know that they can actually have that expectation that
Hmm.
then gives them the freedom to do it. And I always say if you don't travel, you become fixated in your little world, and you don't think about how you can make those trips or how you can make that
Yeah,
quantum leap. So taking the time is necessary because you're only as good as your input. And if you don't focus on changing your inputs or your psychology around that, then you always have the same result. So try
totally.
something new.
Yeah. Funny enough, so Craig Ballantyne's actually a client of ours too. He's an awesome, awesome guy. Him and his wife Michelle have been
Oh,
traveling the
gee.
world with their little kids. Yeah, it's awesome to see them. You're talking about getting out of your kind of zone in really like looking down to the business when you're at home, and then you kind of go travel and you see the world outside of you. And I've always found that, especially going to places like Dubai or Monaco or Nice, it's like expansive for the mindset of like, whoa, it's a big world out there. Whoa, there's a big economy. Whoa, there's a lot of transacting happening, and it just shifts you as an entrepreneur. So tell me a little bit about how the travel has maybe elevated your perspective on the world, possibility, vision, stuff like that.
Yeah. So the first thing was when I went to Europe, actually, just the time zone difference was awesome. So financial markets, they trade 9 a.m. East, obviously, or 9:30. Then you have that obviously on the West Coast, 6:30. Um, and it opens at like 2 o'clock, depending on where you're at in Europe. So you can get like a full day in of living life prior to financial markets opening, so there's a bit of a different tempo, which is cool. And I think that also attributes to some of the ways that they just think as a culture because they can have a slower tempo in their mornings. They can wake up, they can think, they can journal, they can do that kind of stuff before there's a lot of trading activity really going on. So that's from the finance side, but definitely from a perspective shift. I live in Miami currently, originally from a super small, suburb town just north of LA. And, I thought that was big until I moved to Austin, Texas. And I thought Austin, Texas, which is where we met, was awesome and big. And then I saw Miami and I was like, oh, this is even crazier. So then when you go to a different culture, there's also just a different revenue line that you hold yourself accountable to. Because when you're in Monaco, I remember when I went, I was reading some leadership books on, one of the beach clubs or, layouts and all that kind of stuff in the water. And I see these massive yachts. I mean, billionaire type yachts, quadruple decker, different shapes of yachts that, aren't the standard kind of yacht out here in Miami. And it really just expands your mind of like, hey, what are they doing, number one, to afford that kind of thing? Because the burn rate on that is at least 1 to 2% of the value of that. So if it's a, 150, $1 million yacht, you're paying at least 5% of that per year just in fees alone. So that's doing more than your revenue in your business. You're like, dude, I'm doing the wrong things or I'm not, transacting in the right amounts to be able to afford that. So it kind of just gives you some lifts to see how other people are living as well. And then also just a lifestyle that people aspire to always have. You get to also kind of see the dynamics and how they operate. So,
Hmm.
being in bigger rooms, being in different rooms, you obviously pick things up, but it's not the things that they usually say, it's the things that they're just doing and that they're
Yeah,
not saying.
yeah,
And I think there's more value in a lot of those lessons of how to move, how to operate. And even once you start having money, sometimes that can be a fear of like, how do I operate with it? Because, you don't want people to look at you a different way. But the energy of you changes because you do handle a lot more responsibility. So how to
totally.
handle those dynamics and how to see other people handle them,
Yeah.
that was also very insightful as well, just being in those rooms.
I was curious, do you have any sense around how much you saved on the Europe trips or the average value you've been getting out of the points? Any sense of idea around that so far with us?
To be honest, I don't have hard KPIs on that because I just lean on you guys to find me the flights because I'm,
No,
I'm focused on other things. Um,
that's actually a good thing. I had a couple people say that. Some people tracked it exactly, and some were like, "Dude, because it was so cheap, I didn't even care." So
yeah,
I was like, "That's great."
I remember finding, I mean, one of the big things that I remember finding, it was a first class flight from Switzerland to Dubai. Uh, and that was like 80,000 points or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's usually what, a 5 grand flight or something. And I got it
Hmm.
for equivalent of $800 if it was
Yeah.
cash, but it was
Exactly.
points. So there are some notable ones for there. I don't want to say that I don't know anything that's going on,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Totally.
definitely, the biggest because of the volume that we do through just paid ads alone. I mean, even just the optimizing and doubling that percentage that we get back from 1 cent per point to two is worth it because I look at ad spend as a fixed cost. It's just a necessary requirement for us to obviously have sales. So if that's already going to be there, I'm not getting a 1% bump. I'm actually getting an additional 100% return because it's doubling the value. And not a lot of people think about that. They just think it's 1% or 2%. Where if it's 100% return or 350% return on what I was originally going to get, then that's awesome. That's already worth the ROI.
Robert, thank you so much for joining. Excited to continue to help you get more value out of these points. So you can take more of these trips, have more of these experiences. For us to get to continue to hang out and go on trips around the world together. So appreciate you, man. You're an inspiration to me, and I'm sure many others that will listen to this. So want to say thank you and congratulations on all the success. And looking forward to more adventures soon.
Absolutely. More adventures to come. And thank you, man. Likewise.
Appreciate it.